Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason and I'm here to bring us a retrospective show for Overeem versus Harris. So normally we would combine this with the fight picking show, but because we're not going to have an event next week, I felt like we could just do one of the old-fashioned retrospectives. So we had a pretty good night. We went 7-4, so very good solid fight picking accuracy. We did have some questionable calls with the judges last night though. We also went 1-3 on the Patreon. We did get the Ige fight, and he kind of saved our bacon there. But we'll talk about him. Let's get into it. Here's the show. All right, so we have to start by talking about our main event. This one we did call correct, but it was kind of sad. Nobody wanted to see Walt Harris lose. The UFC in their promos really played up his tragic loss, and at that point, how can you not root for the guy? The problem is the numbers just didn't shake out for him, so I couldn't be 100% on his side, and that kind of sucks. That we couldn't feel that way for him, and he ultimately didn't get it done either, but there was some questionable judging and maybe questionable stoppages here, Dominic Cruz got the quick hook, and lately we're seeing guys being able to go out on their shield, Mario Yamasaki style. So early on in the first round, we have Walt Harris clip Overeem and put him down, but in the eyes of who I believe the judge was Dan Miragliotta, he just didn't see it going that way, and he thought that Overeem could fight his way back up to his feet, and he did. And then come the second round, once the big man Walt Harris, his speed, his youth has sort of been depleted, that's when Overeem is able to take over with his experience and really technical striking. He lands an amazing head kick, followed up by a nice cross, and he puts Walt Harris down and just basically ground and pounds his way to victory, outstriking him 68-25 and just looking much, much better on the ground. Once Harris, or a big ticket, was off his feet, he was not the same kind of fighter. So, good win for us. We did predict it, but kind of sad to see Walt Harris go out like that. Nobody wanted to see that guy lose last night, and it sucks when, you got to see it. But athletes don't get to pick the way they go in or out of this sport or any sport, so it's just reality. Either way, we did pick this fight correctly. In the next one, so this one, I think the judges got incorrect, but it led to us getting the fight right on our pick. So Claudia Gadelha wins via split decision over Angela Hill. I did not believe Claudia Gadelha won this fight. She was outstruck. She did score the single takedown in the first round, but I think Angela Hill honestly won this thing 29-28 by winning rounds 2 and 3, with Gadelha getting the clear win in the first round. I thought Gadelha was striking her much better. She was laying the bigger, cleaner shots. She rocked Claudia in the second round, put her down, and I thought that Angela honestly looked like the better fighter that deserved to win there. She was getting a little sloppy, I think, trying to shut the door. She was leading with her head a lot, and Claudia was catching her with some counter shots, especially in the third round. And that might have been what the judges really saw, and then maybe that's why they sided with Gadelha. But I didn't think Gadelha won this one. I think she was given a gift, just like we were given a gift, in our fight pick. So we got this one correct, but we'll see what happens. Also, I was able to pick correctly in an Angela Hill fight, but let's be honest, I should not have gotten this one correct. Angela Hill should have picked up the W, but on the official score sheet, it does say Claudia Gadelha won, so that's what we got to go with. We did get this fight correct. In the next one, again, questionable, tough decision. Dan Ige defeats Edson Barboza. This one I actually did think was correct. Ige did win, but it was so close. 79-80 strikes. The one takedown for Ige, I think, is really what cemented it. But Ige looked so good. For a guy that's so much smaller than Edson Barboza, he brought the heat. He was throwing everything he had in his shots, and Barboza was eating them time and time again. Barboza still looked really good at 145 pounds, but there's such a shark tank of guys at 145 that no matter where Edson Barboza seems to land, he just cannot break into the top echelon of fighters at this point in his career. I really liked Ige. I liked him going into this one. I was a little shocked that he ended up winning. I didn't realize the size disadvantage was going to be so heavy there for Ige, but he proved, being a smaller faster, aggressive guy, you can get it done. And the dude is tough as hell. He ate some monster shots from Barboza, especially those just devastating leg kicks. He did hurt. He was hurt by Barboza pretty handily, and he just kept coming like the Hawaiian, like a Hawaiian wave. He could not be stopped. And he was able to ride it out into a victory. So hats off to Ige. It was a close call, but I do think he ultimately won that contest. Then in our next one, we have Kristoff Jocko defeat Eric Anders. A little less to say about this one. I think Jocko just outplayed him. Eric Anders wasn't dynamic enough. He really just kept doing the same thing over and over again. He'd throw some shots, get it to the cage, and work his clinch game where he wasn't able to score any takedowns. And it didn't seem like he had any kind of backup plan because he didn't throw anything else. He just got him on the cage, tried to grapple with him, put him on the mat. That was his only game plan when it seemed like Jocko was the better grapple fighter, honestly, because of his body of work. So I'm not sure why that was the game plan they wanted to use. Maybe they thought Anders could just overpower him on the ground, score some great ground and pound. But either way, it was a bad game plan. I didn't like it for Anders. I think that he's a better fighter than that. And I think in a lot of ways he probably could have beaten Jocko had he just switched it up and had a backup plan, a plan B, something where he could have given Jocko a different look. Either way, Jocko outstrikes him 66-41. That's kind of all she wrote. Jocko picks up a great win, and he did get some nice solid shots on Anders as well. So unanimous decision victory, another one that we called correctly. In the next one, this one I did not think was a good call, but Song Yadong defeats Marlon Vera. Yadong outstrikes Vera 101-92, but Marlon Vera scores 2 takedowns where I thought he actually did work with them. I don't think they were just, for nothing takedowns like the Yadong fight had with Cody Stamann, where Stamann was really just holding him down. Even then, I still think Stamann won that fight. Yadong has been given 2 gifts by the judges in his last 2 outings. I think his boxing looked crisp as hell. He was a very good fighter. It's just, especially in that third round, I thought tables had turned so heavily for Vera, who was not fazed by the shots of Yadong, that I thought, honestly, Vera won the fight as a whole. I thought that he won at least 2 rounds, and it probably could have been a split decision. I can see how people could have said Yadong won, to be honest, but I just thought Vera was the better fighter, and, it was so close, I don't think you can call it a robbery, but Vera, in my eyes, clearly won, even though he was slightly outstruck. I mean, 101-92, but scoring the takedowns and doing a little bit of damage on the mat, I think cements you as the winning fighter, and this is always so subjective by the judges. It's hard to say which commission would have granted a win for Vera, but I always come down on Vegas being, probably the most clear-cut, was picking the right guys, and so I'm thinking Vegas maybe Marlon Vera would have won this fight, but it's so hard to say just because of the subjectivity of it. Yadong looked great, though. Vera also looked great. This was another thing, too. These guys are normally bantamweights. They fought at featherweight. I don't know if things would have been different if they both had to cut weight down to 135 pounds. It's honestly really hard to say, but Yadong picks up a win. It'll be interesting to see what is next for him. His boxing is really, really crisp. That can be said. He was not winging any shots. He was coming down the pipe with great combinations, great head movement, and footwork. It was a challenge for Vera to keep up, but Vera's just so tough and aggressive that he was still able to land some big shots on Yadong and I think hurt him a little bit at times. Either way, we got this one incorrect with Yadong picking up a win. Then we had Miguel also the Marlon Vera, as far as the Patreon picks goes, we had Ige save our bacon. He was a dog that we got, but we had Vera, and we also had Darren Elkins, which we'll talk about in a little bit down below. Those are our Patreon picks, but 74 overall. So, hey, we still did well. I just got to get better pick on the Patreons. All right, next one. Miguel Baeza defeats Matt Brown. I'm a big fan of Matt Brown, and I love watching him fight. He's a really fun, interesting guy, but, his time has come and gone. His era has passed, and he's still hanging on. And Baeza kind of showed him why he should probably walk away at this point. Baeza was landing good, heavy shots. He showed that he was the faster guy, and despite the toughness of Brown, I do not think at any point in time he was going to be able to defeat Baeza. So Baeza was our pick, and he ended up pulling it out for us. And one that we did not pick correct, Kevin Holland defeats Anthony Hernandez. This was a tough one to watch for Hernandez, who really did nothing. No strikes, no takedowns. Holland clipped him early and put him down and just ground and pounded his way to victory. It was a solid win. Looks like it was via TKO on the method here, or knees for TKO. And yeah, great. We'll see great stuff out of Holland going forward. We did pick Hernandez in this one, so we did get this one incorrect, but it is what it is. Then in the next contest, we had a replacement. So I think it was Mike Davis was the projected winner against Giga Chikadze. But he was replaced by this guy, Erwin Rivera, a Mexican fighter. And despite Erwin Rivera's best efforts, he was not able to keep up with Giga. So for this one, I originally picked Mike Davis, but with that fight being canceled, I went back, crunched it as a debut fight, and Giga did actually win on that one before the fight took place. So I went with it as a win for us. I know it wasn't on the podcast, but I promise you I did do it beforehand. And Giga did win, so I'm going to call this one a victory for us. But Erwin looked really good. He definitely shouldn't be fighting at featherweight. He definitely looks like a guy that should be fighting at bantam based on his size. But that guy was hard, man. He threw some great shots, some real crisp boxing at Giga. It's just when you're, that much smaller than a guy and you get that kind of disadvantage, it's really hard to execute, your style against somebody like that. So hats off to Hernandez. Rivera, we'll see him again, but we'll see what's next for Chikadze as well, or Chikadze, because he is on a solid fight win streak right now, and he's looking really, really good. So we'll see what happens there. And then next contest, we had Nate Landwehr defeat Darren Elkins, probably one of the more fun fights of the evening. So it was a bloodbath for sure. It was one of the bloodiest UFC fights that I have ever seen. And yeah, man, Nate Landwehr, he was the M1 global champion, and he kind of showed why maybe he was a champion, why he's a fighter that was signed to the UFC, screaming out Dana White's name, fighting with one hand behind his back, showboating around. I don't like to see that necessarily all the time, but it was something fun about it, man. Watching Landwehr yell out Dana's name and just everything. It just made it feel like a more fun event than, a no audience, lockdown arena. And I think we kind of needed that. It was really good to see that. I don't think it was disrespectful to Elkins. Landwehr is in a case where he was 0-1 coming to this in the UFC, and he's really going to make a name for himself. So I understand what he did. It's just business, really, right? But Elkins, he was busted up on the eye, and then he caught a really nasty elbow that cut him on the top of the forehead, right about the hairline, and that thing bled like a mother. Landwehr was covered in blood. The mat was covered in blood. It was one of the bloodiest contests that I've ever seen. If you have an opportunity, go back and watch it. If you don't believe me, it was bad in terms of blood. And Elkins, I don't know what's next for him at this point. He's not looking so good these days. He's still a tough fighter, tough competitor. I'm sure Dana will keep on the payroll to test guys up and coming. But that's, I think, the best we're going to see out of Elkins going forward. And ultimately, we did get this one incorrect with Landwehr picking up a win. Then in our last two contests, we had Courtney Casey and Marella. And this one we picked Marella. But Marella looked pretty good up until the takedown. And that's when Courtney Casey kind of broke her arm. So with the lack of fans in attendance, it's really quiet, and you could hear Marella just screaming that arm was getting cranked on, and she tapped as fast and as hard as she could to get out of Courtney Casey's grip. Courtney Casey, I think, effed up her elbow just a bit, kind of screwed it up. Definitely did something there where, Marella was screaming in agony. So that one was kind of tough to watch, but Courtney Casey picks up a great win, and that one we did not get correct. Then our last contest, we had Rodrigo Nascimento defeat Dontel Mays. This is one we did call correctly, with Nascimento picking up a rear naked choke after he was able to get Mays to the mat in the second round. So, like I said, we had a pretty good night overall, 7-4. So we had some pretty good accuracy, the same accuracy we had for UFC 249. So another solid night of fights overall for us, and so I'm happy with it. So that's kind of where I have to leave you guys, though. I'm not sure when we'll be back. Right now, there's talk of a potential event taking place on the 30th. But after that, the only scheduled one I see is UFC 250 on June 6th. And that UFC 250 card might be okay. It's still being put together, but let's look at it just to see what we have to look forward to. We have Nunes and Spencer. That's actually a halfway decent fight, but I don't know if that's one you buy as a headliner, just to be honest. Then we have Charles Bird, Maki Patolo. Okay, so Coconut Bombs is back. I love his fight name. Guy just isn't performing quite well at this point. Ian Heinich, Gerald Mearshart. I like that one. I like Heinich. I like Mearshart too. That'd be an interesting fight. Not blowing your hair back, but not bad. Alex Perez, Jussier Formiga. Okay, not bad. It's a flyweight contest. I like Formiga, though. Then we got Alonzo Menafield taking on Devin Clark. Decent fight. Okay. The only real fight on there I really like is Heinich versus Mearshart. So that card's still coming together. We'll see how things play out. I don't want to call it a real main event because obviously Amanda Nunes is a good gate getter. She can put asses in seats, but it really depends on who she's fighting at this point. And Felicia Spencer, her grappling style could be trouble for Nunes, but I don't see Nunes being in trouble with her. The one that I really want to see out of Nunes is Valentina Shevchenko and Nunes go for a third time and see if Shevchenko can get it done, because she has been so dominant at 125 pounds. Also, this is going to be a featherweight matchup. I should mention that Nunes is going to be fighting at featherweight, not bantam. So I guess that Shevchenko fight is still very much there for 135-pound title. Be interesting to see what happens with this 145-pound title. If Nunes wins, though, God, you can make the argument that she is one of the GOAT martial artists, defending both weight classes, knocking out Cyborg. If we're talking about dominant fighters, that's the equivalent of knocking out Fedor back in the day. Maybe not quite the same, but it's still up there. Cyborg is a force to be reckoned with, and she was basically unstoppable before we saw Nunes put her away. So interesting to see how that one will play out. But that's gonna do it for us. We have nothing else for a couple weeks, so hopefully we'll have a fight on the 30th. In which case the show will be out on the 26th. If not, we'll get one out to you whenever there is another event, and we'll have those picks. So we had kind of a wild couple of weeks here, from Saturday to Wednesday, back to Saturday, doing a lot of shows back to back to back, and I hope I was able to get some solid fight picks for you guys for those events. We went 50%. In fact, let's get our overall accuracy for the 3 days. Why not? All right, so I just kind of pulled up the figures. So we had a 59.07% accuracy rating. Not exactly what I wanted to be, but that 50% on Wednesday just didn't do us any favors, and we had a lot of really weird close decisions there that I think could have went either way. But 59.07 is what we went for this week. Like I said, I'm always trying to get those numbers higher. I would have been happier to, I think it's mental, seeing that 5 in front of the 9. If it was a 6 in front of a 0, I'd be like, oh yeah, we did great. Just having a 5 makes you feel not too happy. But hey, we did all right. I hope you guys out there had fun listening to the show, watching the fights, and hopefully we'll be back soon with more fight picks. So until I speak with you again next time, happy fight picking.